Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Slavin. While I am the mayor of the town of Somerset, I am also testifying on behalf of Mayor Kaki Chantry, the mayor of Garrett Park. You have my complete testimony before you, and I will simply summarize it here. Mayor Chantry has sent in her testimony by email. Our towns have zoning codes with environmental, aesthetic, and historic requirements. We are towns who value our trees. We take great pride in giving our citizens a voice in government. ZTA 1907 would make sweeping, unwarranted changes to current county zoning policy. These changes could potentially preempt our local requirements and rob our citizens of a voice in government. First, the ZTA would allow small cell towers and associated equipment to be placed throughout our quiet residential streets without much needed oversight. Second, there are no provisions in this bill for any post-installation inspection, monitoring, or code enforcement. As you will hear tonight, there are too many examples in Montgomery County of cell towers that have been put in the wrong place on the wrong street. This has occurred in complete violation of Montgomery County's own zoning codes. Residents have had no redress. They have just been forced to live with illegally placed cell towers in their front yards. Clearly, there needs to be reform throughout the county government to address this illegal placement. This reform must occur before any legislation is passed. Second, this legislation guts the conditional use hearing process so that it exists in name only. Although the press materials accompanying this bill indicated that there would be a hearing process for some cell towers, that promise is hollowed out and made empty. ZTA 1907 takes out the provisions for planning board review of the cell tower applications. The planning board review is there to ensure that small cell towers comply with approved community master plans. They are there to be sure that environmental, historic, and aesthetic requirements are followed, but the planning board's role is to lead it. Moreover, this legislation would rob our town and other affected communities of their opportunity to object to the batching of applications. In order to object to application batching, we must first be a party of record, and that must occur before the hearing process. But the county code is currently drafted so that only when a hearing is started do those in the community become parties of record. This is a catch-22 that cuts me and my community out of the process. With the coming explosion in the number of antenna placements, it is absolutely crucial that the county have a better plan in place. Both Mayor Chantry and I look forward to working with you, the county executive, and other affected stakeholders to draft a better bill that respects local communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity to testify today. I've included two letters, one from November 15th of this year, which the mayor and the city council sent to your council, and one from December 6th of last year. And I urge the county council, and this is stated in our November 15th letter, to reach out to residents and local governments to gain a fuller understanding of the concerns many of us have about small cell tower installation. I anticipate that the response to that type of wider public engagement will underscore the need to revise the proposed ZTA to offer more protections to communities, especially in residential areas. Following the FCC ruling last year that so heavily preempted local government's ability to control installation of small cell towers in Takoma Park, we took the initiative to pass a strong local ordinance governing installation in our public rights-of-way. And that set of rules has given us a valuable framework for managing installation that provides important protections in such areas as aesthetics, environmental impact, health and safety, and public notice. Now, a key point is that there is a complementary nature of the county zoning authority and our control of our local rights-of-way. So the zoning rules really have to mesh with the steps that communities like ours and others who are here tonight have taken to ensure we have a say in how and where the small towers are sited. And in fact, our ordinance specifically mandates that any application for siting of cell towers must comply with the county zoning rules. So there really is this need to mesh. Among the key positions we've included are community meetings when an application is submitted, rules on certification and recertification, that equipment meets federal RF transmission standards. Mr. Slavin just referred to that issue, and also the ability to charge higher fees in more complex sighting situations, and we think all of those things are important. We're still studying the ZTA, and we're in the early review process of that, but we've seen that towers could be as close as 30 feet from residences, maybe less in some cases, I'm not sure, but certainly 30 feet. And that's one of the points which we'd like to consult with the county council on before there's any formal action on this. So I would say, like the county, Takoma Park has joined in one of the lawsuits challenging the FCC, and that was mentioned as well by Mr. Slavin, and I hope we'll see some positive results on that, and maybe the next elections will also change the makeup of the FCC in some ways. But in the meantime, it's vital that the county update the small cell tower requirements in a way that really provides maximum protection for residents and within the confines of the FCC ruling, but we want to work with you all on that. So I recommend that this council look closely at the ordinances that we've adopted and others and work with us to protect residents across jurisdictional and zoning lines. Thank you.
Robert Janku.
Hello, my name is Robert Janku. I'm representing Montgomery County Clear Vistas. We want to preserve the clean and uncluttered view in our residential neighborhoods. I attest and affirm that the following statements are true and within my personal knowledge. There are neither legal reasons nor technical reasons to place 5G cell towers in people's front yard. No legal nor technical reasons. Some council members may find this hard to believe. Instead of turning to lobbyists to hear a different story, the council should call a hearing like Congress does with invited witness to verify what we are saying. Invite lawyer Sheldon Pine, who on March the 4th spoke to the City of Gaithersburg Council. He gave testimony to the effect that the Fourth Circuit Court, our court, allows jurisdictions to reject cell towers in the utility right-of-way as long as cell towers are allowed in other places in Gaithersburg jurisdiction. Invite lawyer Van Eaton, who has won federal and state cases brought by Crown Castle in New York. Joe assisted Gaithersburg in their zoning to ban cell towers in front of residents' homes. Joe is also our litigator against the FCC case currently mentioned. Invite Edward Myers, supporting intervener, won a case brought by United Kituwa Band of Cherokee Indians versus FCC. The D.C. Court of Appeals concluded that the FCC did not adequately address possible harms of deregulation and the benefits of environmental and historic preservation review pursuant to its public interest authority under 47 U.S.C. Therefore, the ordered deregulation of small cells was arbitrary and capricious. Invite presenter from Samsung and Verizon to document that Samsung has 5G antennas that send signals over 2,000 feet. So why are we putting them in front people's front yards when the tech exists? Verify that FCC mid-band spectrum has become a target for 5G build-out given its balance, coverage, and capacity characteristics. So when they go to bin-band, that we know of this short 250 feet stuff. Include a real estate expert to get an estimate the effects on property values, looking at a decrease of up to 20%. Include a Montgomery County Revenue Authority to gauge the effect on tax revenue. As property values go down, revenue will go down. I think the ZTA is being led by one council member who sits on the FCC Intergovernmental Advisory Committee that gives advice on how to write local zoning. This is a conflict of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Janku. We'll consider the rest of your testimony. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming to testify. Now we go on to Group B. Daniel Waklawig, Kelly Cameron, Molly Hawk, Kenneth Luzato, Susan Kahn, and Matthew Herman. We'll begin with Daniel Waklawig. We already, I think at the end of this, yeah. Daniel? Okay. There's a button at the base of the microphone. There you go.
Council members, I attest and affirm that the following statements are true and within my personal knowledge. I strongly oppose ZTA 1907. There are over 15,000 studies showing negative health impacts from radio frequency microwave radiation, thousands of which have been peer-reviewed. Pulse-modulated microwave radiation has been found especially dangerous. There are 23 studies which found the same mechanism by which microwave radiation can cause harm to cellular function. This smoking gun makes moot any argument for the safety of microwave radiation. In its arguments for the safety of 5G, the MC Council continues to cite the fraudulent FCC standards based on 120 studies from the 1980s and earlier, all of which ironically concluded adverse biological effects. The Supreme Court Doe-Bear rule requires that evidence be relevant and reliable, and weights more heavily recent rather than older evidence. Thus, the body of decades-old evidence used for FCC's purpose in intentional ignorance of the studies of the last 3 decades indicates that the Supreme Court would consider FCC guidelines at best unreliable, at worst based in scientific fraud. Of the original 120 studies chosen to prove the hazard threshold set by the means of these studies, 15 show adverse effects at lesser intensities than the hazard threshold, and not surprisingly, since the guidelines were not set by public health scientists, but rather by the industry group Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Thus, in the worst case, the Supreme Court would find the guidelines fraudulent ab initio. The Council has also cited the American Cancer Society's position that 5G is safe without taking into account the organization's track record on other known carcinogens. According to a study published by the IEEE, human cells communicate at millimeter microwave frequencies. Millimeter microwave radiation is used in medicine in several countries, including Russia and China. Multiple peer-reviewed studies show that millimeter microwave radiation affects living organisms, including humans. I've attached a list of studies on the biological effects of microwave radiation. I have included a chart that shows conflicts of interest in ICNIRP. Given the blatant conflicts of interest that plague the regulatory agencies and research organizations, the Council needs to consider the numerous peer-reviewed studies that demonstrate the many deleterious effects of pulse-modulated microwave radiation on health. Millimeter microwave radiation cannot lawfully be allowed into our communities, as it is a known hazard, even at very subtle intensities. I do not consent to such exposure, whether or not it may be officially considered experimental. The Council must vote no on ZTA 1907 and challenge FCC Rule 1830 in an egregious attempt to preempt local rights and authorities, but now invalidated by 2 D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals rulings of August 9, 2019 and October 1, 2019. I accept your oath to support the Constitution. I have presented no matter of mere concern or any other non-substantive matter, but solely matters of substance, of fact, and law. Thank you.
Here. Kelly Cameron. Kelly Cameron? Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Cameron. I live in Silver Spring, and for more than 35 years I have practiced communications law, first at the FCC, and for more than 20 years in private practice. Throughout my career I've worked on wireless communications issues both in the United States and around the world. I'm not currently representing any U.S. wireless carrier. As you know, the FCC has issued licenses to all the nationwide wireless carriers, as well as regional carriers that allow the licensees to use various bands of the radio frequency spectrum. As wireless technology has evolved over the last 35 years, the carriers have implemented more and more advanced technologies. We may all recall that the first cell phones basically only carried voice, but today the vast majority of wireless traffic is data, including high-definition video and many other applications. The newest technology that the carriers are deploying nationwide and worldwide, of course, is 5G, and like its predecessors, it will allow the delivery of more and faster data services, among other things. This will allow the carriers to meet the ever-growing demand for more and faster data service. As the Council is well aware, federal law, including actions of the FCC and other federal agencies, takes precedence over inconsistent state and local laws. So if the Council wanted to ban the introduction of 5G services in Montgomery County, as some residents apparently would ask you to do, that law would certainly be invalidated in federal court. And also banning or severely restricting the deployment of 5G services would be a serious mistake even if it were legal. More and more of our residents, particularly young people, only use wireless, not wired communication services, and all of us make extensive use of advanced telecom services every day. Banning or restricting advanced wireless services in the county when these services are being deployed nationwide and worldwide would make Montgomery County a technological backwater and hamper economic development in the county. Of course, the FCC allows local jurisdictions to adopt reasonable zoning ordinances, including for aesthetic reasons, so long as the ordinances do not unreasonably impair the carrier's ability to provide services to us, the consumers. I believe the proposed zoning amendment strikes a reasonable balance between legitimate concerns about how and where telecommunications antennas will be built and the need of the carriers and their customers for the deployment of advanced wireless services. Thank you.
Thank you. Molly Hoke.
I became concerned about cell phones and cell towers in 2008 when my church, Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church in Bethesda, considered having a cell tower put on church property in order to make money, right near the nursery school. I read many articles at the National Library of Medicine, epidemiological studies that said if you live near a cell tower, you're more likely to get cancer, headaches, learning disabilities, and sleep problems. Since then, there have been many research studies, experimental research studies that have been done, more than 500, that have showed harm to our health. And there's a very good organization, Environmental Health Trust, which tracks all this research. They have 500 studies and 150 pages of research. Most people don't know that wireless technology was never tested for long-term safety, and that children are more vulnerable than adults. The accumulated scientific evidence shows much harm. The World Health Organization classified cell phone radiation as a possible cell 2 carcinogen in 2011. Cell towers and cell phones have negative effects on absolutely every aspect of our health. Too long a list to mention, but everything you can think of. 2 large randomized studies in rats were completed in 2018 and showed similar results. 2 parts of the body are most likely to get cancer: the brain, glioblastoma, formerly a rare kind of cancer, and the heart, schwannomas, the neural sheath of the heart. There are also other parts of the body that are affected, but not as much. And so they both found the same exact thing. Teddy Kennedy, Beau Biden, and John McCain all died of glioblastoma. And a new study in France showed a lot more glioblastoma there than in the past 20 years. Scientific American has an article by Joel Moskowitz recently that said that it's much more harmful than the government or telecom industry wants the public to know. He's saying it now because the FCC is about to reaffirm their radiation requirements. So my feeling is that the government and the telecom industry are working together. They want to make money. They want to roll this out, and they don't care about our health. And it's up to us as citizens to fight back, to protect us. And it's this telecom industry is like the tobacco industry. It wants to make money, doesn't want anyone to know that it's causing health problems.
Thank you so much. We'll consider the rest of your written testimony. Kenneth Lusato. Is Kenneth Lusato here? No? Susan Kahn. There's a button there at the base. Yeah. Coming up.
My name is Susan Kahn. As a parent of a student in MCPS and as a volunteer there, I've been alarmed to see cell towers directly beside schools. In 2019 in California, Sprint turned off a cell tower beside Weston Elementary after 4 students and 3 teachers were diagnosed with cancer since 2016. In California in 2015, a 25-year veteran fire captain described the neurological damage of firefighters, and the Firefighters Union successfully opposed the construction of cell towers on fire station property based on health effects that included headaches and inability to sleep. An extensive body of hundreds of scientific research articles documents the carcinogenic effects of radiofrequency radiation. Ramazzini Institute study in 2018 conducted below FCC exposure levels documented the same type of cancerous brain tumors and heart tumors as were documented in the National Toxicology Program studies. While cell towers have no business on school grounds and students should not be treated as guinea pigs, it is especially disturbing that over 80% of cell phone towers in MCPS schools are at schools where at least 1/3 of students are eligible for free and reduced price meals. Likewise, the Park Ritchie apartment building in Takoma Park offers affordable housing and has 33 antennas at the top of the building. In a permit application, Verizon acknowledged the antennas it was proposing along with existing ones could emanate 25 times the FCC's maximum exposure limit for RF radiation. Lines 107 to 110 of the ZTA describe how owners of towers and antennas must repair damage from their facility. How do you repair the damage if a person is diagnosed with brain cancer? The issue of equity arises again as some neighbors with utility poles in front of homes may end up with cell poles, which may decrease property values while others may not. The widespread placement of cell facilities is a recipe for disrupting community harmony on a massive scale, causing resentment between neighbors and toward governing officials. The ZTA overlooks that people have rights to the entire use of their property. The ZTA describes 3 times a minimal setback from, quote, any building intended for human occupation, unquote. If any setback is used, it should be to the edge of a property, not to buildings that imply humans should stay trapped inside. The entire green space and land and yard around a building are also intended for human occupation. The council should vote no on 1907 and start providing oversight over cell facilities in the county, including those at the Park Ritchie building and 7800 Brickyard Road in Potomac, where homeowners have been waiting since 2011 to have a cell tower removed that was erroneously placed there. Local jurisdictions have a right to determine what goes in our right-of-way, how cell facilities appear, and how they affect our health and privacy, given that wireless transmissions are less secure than fiber optic. I encourage you to value this right as well and to vote no on 1907. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.